A Tangent Universe and the 28-Day Countdown. Richard Kelly's 2001 cult film begins with a jet engine falling through Donnie's ceiling while he's sleepwalking, guided away by Frank, a figure in a disturbing rabbit costume. Frank tells Donnie the world will end in 28 days, 6 hours, 42 minutes, and 12 seconds. The film reveals through The Philosophy of Time Travel, a book by Roberta Sparrow, that the jet engine's appearance created a tangent universe, an unstable parallel reality that will collapse and destroy everything unless a chosen living receiver returns the artifact to the primary universe. Donnie is the living receiver, the engine is the artifact, and Frank is a manipulated dead, someone who died in the tangent universe and can guide Donnie from beyond. Throughout the film, Donnie has powers including super strength, mind control, and the ability to see future paths as liquid spears extending from people's chests. These abilities exist only because the tangent universe's physics are breaking down. Frank reveals he'll die on Halloween night, and when Donnie's girlfriend Gretchen is killed by Frank, still alive at this point in the timeline, Donnie understands his mission. The final act shows Donnie using his powers to create a time portal, ripping the jet engine from a plane his mother and sister are on, and sending it back through time to the night of October 2nd. Donnie chooses to stay in bed this time, allowing the engine to kill him, sacrificing himself to close the tangent universe and restore the primary universe. The film ends with characters waking with faint memories of the erased timeline, haunted by events that never happened but somehow still felt. The Thing. Childs or MacReady is infected, and John Carpenter refuses to tell. The 1982 horror masterpiece ends with the two survivors sitting in the Antarctic snow, their research station burning behind them, both aware that one of them might be the alien shapeshifter. MacReady offers Childs a drink, Childs accepts, and they laugh about their situation as they freeze to death. Carpenter deliberately created an ambiguous ending and has consistently refused to clarify which man, if either, is the Thing. Some fans argue that Childs' missing breath in the final scene proves he's the Thing, but other scenes show infected characters breathing normally, and crew members have said the breath differences are just lighting and filming quirks, not intentional clues. Another theory claims MacReady's bottle contains gasoline, not alcohol, and Childs drinking it without reaction proves he's not human, but MacReady drinks from the same bottle earlier, disproving this. A third theory notes Childs is wearing different clothes than when he left to investigate, suggesting he encountered and was replaced by Palmer Thing or Blair Thing. Cast members have offered conflicting interpretations over the years. Keith David, who played Childs, believes his character remained human. Some people involved with the film, and many fans like to think both men are human, making their mutual suspicion the true horror, while Kurt Russell himself mainly stresses that the ending is meant to bring the audience back to square one, without a clear answer. Carpenter's genius is creating an ending where paranoia makes resolution impossible, reflecting the film's theme that the Thing's greatest weapon is destroying trust, leaving survivors unable to help each other, even when cooperation is their only chance of survival. Blade Runner. Deckard is a replicant, and Gaff knows it. Ridley Scott's 1982 adaptation of Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep ends with Deckard finding an origami unicorn outside his apartment, placed by fellow cop Gaff. Earlier, Deckard dreamed of a unicorn running through a forest, a dream he never shared with anyone. Gaff's unicorn proves he knows Deckard's private thoughts, which is only possible if those thoughts are implanted memories, and Deckard is a replicant. The theatrical cut, forced by the studio, included a happy ending, with Deckard and Rachel driving into the wilderness, with voiceover suggesting Rachel has no termination date. Scott's 1992 director's cut removed the voiceover and happy ending, restored the unicorn scene's prominence, and made the replicant theory explicit. Additional evidence includes Deckard's glowing eyes in one scene, a visual cue used throughout the film to identify replicants. Gaff's presence at every crucial moment suggests he's monitoring Deckard's performance as an experiment. Bryant's line that Deckard is the best Blade Runner we've ever had could mean he's a replicant designed specifically to hunt his own kind. Harrison Ford has publicly disagreed with Scott's interpretation, arguing that making Deckard a replicant diminishes his journey toward empathy and humanity. Ford believes Deckard is human learning compassion from those he's supposed to destroy. Scott has stated unequivocally that Deckard is a replicant, making Blade Runner a story about artificial beings discovering their humanity while humans like Bryant behave mechanically. The debate continues because both interpretations work thematically, but the unicorn remains Scott's intentional confirmation that Deckard is as artificial as those he hunts. Looper. Young Joe shoots himself to erase the Rainmaker. Rian Johnson's 2012 time travel thriller follows Joe, a looper who executes targets sent back 30 years from the future. When Joe's future self escapes, young Joe must hunt himself, while old Joe searches for the child who will grow up to become the Rainmaker, a tyrant who closes all the loops. The film's timeline mechanics operate on a changing present model, where altering the past immediately affects the future. When young Joe loses fingers, old Joe's fingers vanish instantly. The climax reveals the child is Sid, a boy with powerful telekinetic abilities being raised by Sarah. Old Joe believes killing Sid will prevent the Rainmaker's rise, but young Joe realizes that witnessing his mother's murder is what traumatizes Sid and turns him into a monster. Young Joe sees the loop, old Joe kills Sarah, Sid becomes the Rainmaker. The Rainmaker closes the loops, Joe is sent back and tries to kill Sid, creating the very future he's trying to prevent. The only way to break the cycle is for young Joe to kill himself before old Joe can kill Sarah. When young Joe shoots himself, old Joe vanishes mid-action, erased from existence because he never lived to be sent back. The gunshot wound never heals into the scars old Joe carried, suggesting the timeline completely overwrites itself rather than branching. Quick note, if you're into this kind of content, I create videos like this all the time. Subscribing would really mean a lot. Predestination. The unmarried mother is also the temporal agent and the baby. The Spierig brothers' 2014 adaptation of Robert Heinlein's All You Zombies creates the most complex identity loop in cinema. A temporal agent recruits a writer called the unmarried mother, who tells a story about being born female as Jane, falling in love with a mysterious man, getting pregnant, then discovering during the complicated birth that she's intersex. The doctors perform gender reassignment surgery, and Jane becomes John. The baby is stolen from the hospital by a stranger. The agent takes John back to 1963, where John meets and seduces Jane, his past self, becoming the mysterious man who impregnates her. The agent then travels to 1945 and steals the baby from the hospital, taking it further back to the orphanage where Jane was left as an infant. Jane, John, the unmarried mother, and the baby are all the same person at different points in a closed loop with no beginning. The agent is also revealed to be John's future self, recruited into the Temporal Bureau, and eventually tasked with stopping the Fizzle Bomber. The final revelation is that the Fizzle Bomber is the agent's even further future self, driven insane by the paradox of his existence. The same person exists at 5 different ages simultaneously at the film's climax. The loop creates itself with no origin point, embodying the bootstrap paradox. The protagonist is his own mother, father, son, daughter, and the terrorist he's hunting, making this a story about predestination versus free will, where the main character literally cannot escape himself because he is the entire timeline. Prometheus. The engineers created humanity and then decided to destroy it. Ridley Scott's 2012 prequel to Alien follows the crew of the Prometheus searching for humanity's creators. They find an engineer installation on LV-223 containing biological weapons and the bodies of dead engineers, seemingly killed by their own creation. One engineer survives in stasis for 2,000 years. When awakened, he immediately attacks the crew and sets course for Earth with a cargo of biological weapons designed to exterminate humanity. Scott has suggested in interviews that the engineers created humans as an experiment but became disappointed, deciding to wipe us out and start over. The most prominent theory involves Jesus Christ. Scott indicated that the engineers sent an emissary to guide humanity 2,000 years ago, and humans killed him. This emissary was Jesus, and his execution prompted the engineers to load their ship with black goo and head to Earth for genocide. The ship never arrived because the weapon turned on its creators, killing the engineers and stranding the last survivor in stasis. The black goo's function remains inconsistent. It creates the Deacon alien from the engineer's body, mutates Fifield into a violent creature, impregnates Shaw with the squid creature, and presumably created the xenomorphs. David, the android, has his own agenda, experimenting on the crew, and later, in Alien Covenant, using the black goo to create the xenomorphs himself. In Alien Covenant, we learn through flashbacks and David's records that he and Shaw reached an engineer world, where David used the black goo to annihilate the local engineer population and most other life, leaving the broader species' fate unclear. Shaw's story ends off-screen, her remains discovered in David's lab. The film's conclusion implies David exterminated an entire engineer civilization using their own weapons, erasing humanity's creators and any chance of understanding why they made us or why they wanted us dead. Sunshine. Pinbacker shouldn't be able to exist. Danny Boyle's 2007 film follows the crew of Icarus II carrying a bomb to reignite the dying sun. They discover Icarus I drifting nearby, its crew dead except for Captain Pinbacker, who sabotaged the first mission. Pinbacker appears on Icarus II, despite the impossibility of his survival or transfer between ships. His movements are shown through jarring edits and overexposed, distorted visuals, making him appear supernatural. The film provides a scientific explanation. Extreme extreme solar radiation exposure has destroyed Pinbacker's sanity and possibly his biology. He's been staring directly at the sun through the observation room for 7 years, absorbing radiation that should have killed him. Pinbacker's religious mania convinces him that humanity's extinction is God's will, and restarting the sun is blasphemy. His degraded physical state and apparent ability to appear in multiple locations simultaneously suggest he's become something inhuman through radiation exposure, though whether this is literal or the crew's psychological breakdown remains ambiguous. The film shifts from hard science fiction to slasher horror in its final act, with Pinbacker stalking and killing crew members. Physicist Kappa completes the mission by manually detonating the bomb, sacrificing himself to save Earth. The final sequence shows the bomb igniting the sun, intercut with images of Kappa's family on a frozen Earth seeing sunlight return. Boyle intended the horror shift to represent the incomprehensibility of being so close to the sun, with Pinbacker embodying what happens when human consciousness encounters forces beyond understanding, though some viewers consider this tonal shift a flaw in an otherwise hard science fiction film. Contact, Ellie Arroway's 18-hour journey through space that lasted seconds. Robert Zemeckis' 1997 adaptation of Carl Sagan's novel follows scientist Ellie as she makes first contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. The aliens send blueprints for a machine that transports one person through a wormhole. Ellie volunteers and experiences an 18-hour journey where she meets an alien intelligence that takes her deceased father's form on a beach representing Pensacola, where she grew up. The alien explains they're simply caretakers of the wormhole network built by beings even they don't understand. From Earth's perspective, the transport pod simply drops straight through the machine with no time elapsed. All recording devices show only static, providing no evidence of Ellie's journey. She's humiliated in congressional hearings as a delusional participant in an expensive hoax funded by the eccentric billionaire S.R. Haddon. However, one crucial piece of evidence emerges. The recording equipment ran for 18 hours, despite showing only static, confirming something happened during that allegedly instantaneous drop. The film's climax shows presidential advisor Michael Kitts discovering this fact, but choosing to classify it, keeping the truth hidden. Palmer Joss, a Christian philosopher and Ellie's love interest, provides the film's thematic resolution. Ellie, a scientist, must now live with an unfalsifiable belief based on personal experience, rather than evidence, exactly the position of religious faith she previously dismissed. The ending suggests faith and science aren't opposites, but parallel paths to truth, with the vastness of the universe containing room for both empirical evidence and personal revelation. Though Sagan's outspoken scientific skepticism and self-described agnosticism make the film's religiosity controversial among those who knew his actual beliefs about spirituality and the cosmos. Knowing the Whisper People are aliens or angels or both. Alex Proyas's 2009 disaster film follows Professor John Kussler discovering that a string of numbers written by a girl in 1959 predicts every major disaster for 50 years, including dates, death tolls, and coordinates. The final numbers predict a massive solar flare that will incinerate Earth. Throughout the film, strange figures whisper to John's son Caleb and other children, calling them to specific locations. These Whisper People appear as pale, silent humanoids, and their true forms are revealed in the climax as glowing, ethereal beings. They select certain children, including Caleb, to be taken before the apocalypse. The film's final act shows these beings as massive, crystalline entities with wing-like energy fields, deliberately evoking angelic imagery. They transport the chosen children in spherical ships to a distant world, where the kids run through golden fields toward a massive tree, directly paralleling the Garden of Eden. Meanwhile, Earth is consumed by fire as the solar flare hits, killing everyone else, including John, who chooses to die with his parents rather than live without his son. Proyas deliberately makes the being's nature ambiguous, presenting them as extraterrestrial, but infusing them with religious symbolism. They're conducting a cosmic Noah's Ark scenario, preserving humanity by seeding children on multiple worlds. The film's religious imagery intensified controversy among critics who felt it betrayed the scientific premise for supernatural resolution. The prophecy system remains unexplained, as does how the beings knew disasters would occur decades in advance, unless they're operating outside linear time, which would make them functionally omniscient, further supporting the angel interpretation over the alien one. If this was worth your time, consider subscribing so you don't miss out on future uploads. Thanks for watching.